Hey, hi everyone, welcome back to Code Snippets and welcome back to another lecture of the JavaScript Bootcamp. In the last lecture we talked about PO functions, ठीक है, और इस लेक्चर में एक और ऐसा टर्म के बारे में हम थोड़ा बात करेंगे which are higher order functions, ठीक है ना. अच्छा, before higher order functions let's talk about one more term which is called as first class functions. ठीक है, तो हमने JavaScript में अभी तक बहुत functions देख लिए, ठीक है ना, और हमने बहुत सारे functions के कोड अब तक लिख भी चुके हैं. तो एक चीज तो तुम्हें पता चल गया होगा, people who are coming from other language backgrounds such as Java or Python, anything. In JavaScript, functions have some more features, right? Like you can actually uh, take functions as parameters in other functions, right? You can take functions, you can return functions from other functions. ठीक है. अच्छा, you can assign a function to some variable. ठीक है. So for example, I can do something like this where my function as function log hi am assigned to something. ठीक है, I can do something like this. This is so basically this is a variable and I assigned a function to this variable. Perfectly fine. Now in languages where the functions are treated just like variables, those functions are called as first class functions. ठीक है, मैं जावास्क्रिप्ट में एक फंक्शन को एज अ पैरामीटर यूज कर सकता हूँ. मैं जावास्क्रिप्ट में एक फंक्शन को किसी दूसरे फंक्शन से रिटर्न कर सकता हूँ. मैं जावास्क्रिप्ट में एक फंक्शन को एक वेरिएबल में असाइन भी कर सकता हूँ. ठीक है, सो बेसिकली फंक्शंस आर वर्किंग एज वेरिएबल्स ओनली, आर बिहेविंग एज वेरिएबल्स ओनली, नॉट वर्किंग एज वेरिएबल्स. फंक्शंस आर बिहेविंग एज वेरिएबल्स ओनली. सो in languages where functions behave as variables, in those languages we call the functions as first class functions. ठीक है. अब हायर ऑर्डर फंक्शंस क्या होते हैं? द फंक्शंस which are taking functions as parameters or are returning some functions are higher order functions. ठीक है, तो मान लो मेरे पास कुछ फंक्शन है, फंक्शन x and this actually takes some callback function. ये कुछ callback function लेगा and इसके अंदर से I take a variable as let a equals to, मान लो कुछ मैंने ले लिया 7, okay, and then I call that callback function with a as a parameter, and then I can define a callback function. What does this callback function does? It takes some number and it just, let's say, print the number. ठीक है, so I can basically do what? I can do something like this: get x and pass the callback function, right? Get x and then pass the callback function. Okay, so if I run this code, it will work perfectly, right? So these are all first class functions, but this getx, this one is a higher order function. ये higher order function है. ये higher order function क्यों है? क्योंकि this is accepting another function as a callback parameter. ठीक है, मैंने यहाँ पे इसको क्या पास किया था? मैंने इसको यहाँ पे callback function पास कर रहा हूँ इसके पैरामीटर में, which is itself another function. ठीक है, so functions में फिर से करो, functions which takes another functions as input parameters or returns another function, they are called higher order functions. ठीक है, एक और एग्जांपल मान लेते हैं, फंक्शन get y मान लो. ठीक है, this takes some value as, let's say, num, and what it does, I have a inner function inside this function multiply num, and what it does, whatever number it gets, it will multiply it with 10, and then from this function I will return this multiply num function. Okay, I will return this multiply num function. Now notice one thing, okay, in this get x I am using callback function and passing this parameter is, तो basically मैं यही पे इसको execute कर दे रहा हूँ. I'm executing this function over here only. So whenever I'm calling get x, my callback function inside get x is also getting executed. ठीक है ना? In get y I am returning the function, I am not executing the function. ठीक है ना? अगर मुझे execute करना होता तो I would have done something like this. I would have invoked the function from get y, but I'm not invoking the inner function. I am returning the inner function. So basically from this function get y, I am returning a function, and इसको I can catch this function somewhere. Let return function as get y 20. So it will basically multiply. So this will return me this function. The return function will basically be this with num as 20. Okay, and num का value ये 20 लेके रखेगा because of closures. We have already studied that. Okay, so now if I invoke this function will basically get invoked with the value of num as 20, right? And I will then take these values in some variable, and then if I log this value, so you see it will give me 200. Okay, so this get x, this get y, these are all higher order functions, and all kinds of functions in JavaScript are फर्स्ट क्लास फंक्शंस. ठीक है, तो इतना तुम समझ गए. फर्स्ट क्लास फंक्शंस क्या हो गया? फर्स्ट क्लास फंक्शंस आर फंक्शंस व्हिच बिहेव्स लाइक वेरिएबल्स. ओके, pure functions are functions which are dependent purely on their input parameters and are not in any way dependent on any kind of outside variables or cause any side effects, and it does not change the state of the application. And higher order functions are functions which takes functions as input parameters or returns of functions. Okay, so I hope you understood this, and I will keep this lecture till this much only, and I will see you in the next one.